Picture this. It's 10,000 years ago. The sun just went down. There's no light switch, no phone screen, no lamp, no candle even. Just darkness. Complete, total, absolute darkness. And you've got about 10 hours until sunrise. So what do? Because here's the thing. Ancient humans didn't just sit there staring at nothing. They had a full night ahead of them. And what they actually did with it is so different from what we do today that it almost feels like they were a different species. In fact, some of the things they did every single night have almost completely disappeared from modern life. Stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to look at your own nighttime routine very differently. First, let's understand just how dark it actually was. We have no real reference for this today. Even in a blackout, there's moonlight coming through the window, a street light somewhere, your router blinking in the corner. But for early humans, nothing. Researchers who study ancient human behavior say that once the sun set, the world essentially shut down visually. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face on a cloudy night. So the first thing ancient humans had to solve wasn't boredom, it was survival. Predators don't sleep at sunset. Big cats, wolves, hyenas, they actually become more active at night. So the moment darkness hit, staying alive became the #1 priority. And their solution? Fire. Not just for warmth. Fire was essentially ancient humanity's first security system. It kept predators away, it gave light, and, here's the part nobody talks about, it became the center of their entire social world after dark. Think about that. The campfire wasn't just practical. It was their television, their dinner table, their therapist's couch. Everything happened around the fire. So, once the fire was going and they felt relatively safe, what happened next? But safe is a relative term. If the fire went out in the middle of the night, that wasn't just inconvenient. It could be fatal. Imagine waking up at 2 a.m. and realizing the only thing standing between your family and a hungry predator was gone. That's how important fire was. So when people gathered around it, they weren't just staying warm. They were gathering around the center of their entire world. Researchers at Harvard actually studied modern hunter-gatherer communities, groups living today much like ancient humans did, and recorded what they do after dark. The results were fascinating. About 60% of nighttime conversation around the fire was storytelling. Not planning, not arguing, not talking about food. Pure storytelling. They told stories about people in the group, distant relatives, strange events, and things that happened to someone's grandfather's grandfather. They passed down knowledge, warnings, and wisdom entirely through narrative. This is actually where mythology comes from. Gods, monsters, creation stories. All of it started as campfire content. Ancient humans were essentially the first YouTubers, just with fire instead of a ring light. But it wasn't only talking. Music was happening too. Drums, simple wind instruments, rhythmic clapping. Anthropologists have found instruments dating back over 40,000 years. These weren't made for ceremonies alone. They were made for nights. And then there's something even more surprising. What if I told you that waking up in the middle of the night might not actually be a sleep problem? For thousands of years, humans expected it. Sleep researcher Roger Eckarch discovered through historical records across dozens of ancient and medieval cultures that humans didn't sleep the way we sleep today. They slept in 2 separate blocks. First, sleep. Then wake up for an hour or two. Then, second sleep. That middle window, that gap between first and second sleep, was considered almost sacred. People used it to pray, reflect, have quiet conversations, or just lie there in a half-dreaming state that felt different from normal waking life. Medieval doctors actually wrote about this middle window as the best time to think clearly, make decisions, or conceive children. Your alarm clock didn't just change when you wake up. It erased an entire human experience that existed for thousands of years. Here's where it gets really interesting from a psychological angle. Those nighttime hours around the fire weren't wasted time. They were doing something critical for human survival that we massively underestimate today. They were building trust. Anthropologist Polly Weissner studied the Juhoansi people of southern Africa and found that daytime conversation was almost entirely practical: food, tools, plans. But nighttime conversation was emotional, personal, and community building. People shared fears, confessed mistakes, laughed together, and resolved conflicts. Weissner believes this nighttime social bonding is actually what allowed early humans to build the complex, cooperative societies that outcompeted every other species on the planet. We didn't dominate the world because we were the strongest. We dominated it partly because we sat around fires at night and talked to each other. Think about that the next time you spend your evening doom scrolling alone. Now, here's something that will genuinely mess with your head. In 1879, just 146 years ago, one single invention wiped out everything we just talked about. Overnight. Literally, overnight. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb in 1879. Within a few decades, artificial light had completely restructured human nighttime behavior. For the first time in 300,000 years of human history, the night became just an extension of the day. Work didn't stop. Entertainment moved indoors and became passive. And that two-phase sleep pattern that humans had maintained for hundreds of thousands of years? Gone. Replaced by one long block that we now stress about constantly. Scientists today link the loss of natural sleep patterns to increased anxiety, disrupted circadian rhythms, and a whole range of mood disorders. And loneliness, which we think of as a modern epidemic, some researchers trace part of its roots back to the disappearance of those nightly communal fire gatherings. We replaced the campfire with the phone screen. Same glow, totally different effect on the human brain. So, what did ancient humans do all night? They told stories. They made music. They slept in 2 shifts. They built trust, resolved conflict, and bonded in ways that literally shaped human civilization. And honestly, it sounds kind of amazing. For almost all of human history, night pulled people together. Today, it often pulls people apart. The strange part? We call our way normal. Which makes you wonder, what is artificial light actually doing to us? If this made you curious about something you never thought to question before, that's exactly what Mood Frame is for. Subscribe. There's a lot more where that came from.